Namaste. Welcome to episode number 11 of Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. I'm Happy Jack, live from Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA, and I'm here with special co-host.
Kristen from Muskoka, Ontario, Canada.
Amazing. So happy to have you here with us, Kristen.
I'm happy to be here
Stepping
again.
in for Hanna, who this is Hanna's last week. She's been in Europe for a couple of months now, which is actually her home. So she's been back connecting with her home. But this weekend, she will be back in Canada, in Muskoka as well. But I'm so happy to have you here with us. I gotta say though, I tried. I made a note. I have it written right down here on my notes, not to say what episode number it is, because it's kind of irrelevant. It's like, what am I going to be? It's episode 27. It's episode 83. I mean, I don't need to say that at the start of every episode. Sure enough, the first words out of my mouth as soon as I kicked off was, welcome to episode 11. That's a samskara. That's like when we have this conditioning, we just keep doing the same thing. I'm going to work on that. But we're super happy to have everybody here with us. We got beautiful friends around the world. We got yogis. We got Danica in Maine, Felicia, Colorado, Martina, Germany, Pam, Missouri, Zandra, UK, and Yara, Texas. 8 yogis around the globe who are here with us. Thank you for being with us in the Zoom room. And of course, everybody who's listening. Kristen and I, we were just talking right before we got started. Actually, again, coming back to this whole idea of in-person events, in-person retreats or teacher training versus Zoom, right? Kind of that conversation, the pros and the cons. I mean, I'll tell you, having done in-person for years and now been doing Zoom since the pandemic, we get to know each other so much better. Like I've been to a lot of trainings, a lot of workshops around the world. Sure, they're amazing, but I didn't get to know, like, I really know Pam well. She's been a part of the community on Zoom here for 3 years consistently. She's in Kansas City, Missouri. Otherwise, like, those kind of friendships wouldn't have come to being. So love that we are all here and super excited to get started. So thank you for those who are here in Zoom. Thank you to those who are listening. For those who leave us, who are Patreon contributors, thank you so much. It's a community-supported podcast, and for the price of a cup of coffee, per month, you get to support this initiative, and we appreciate you, all of those that make a contribution. But again, for those who have the video, the visual right now, you're going to see I've got Kristen, who's here with me. And we won't go into the whole bio with Kristen, because actually, Kristen, you joined us in episode 7. And so there we really got to know you and your story and your transformation. And it's a beautiful, beautiful conversation. So if you want to get to know Kristen, listen to episode 7. But just know that we're in good hands. She's our director of community. Anybody that emails us at info@happyjackyoga.com, that's who you're talking to. You're talking to Kristen. Kristen, a couple of words. What are you feeling right now? What is on your heart? What are you present to?
I'm just so excited. Every time you ask me to lead a call or join a podcast, I just feel so grateful because as you know, I'm a lot of the time behind the scenes. So anytime I have that chance to come up and see everybody's beautiful faces and make that connection, speaking one-on-one with everybody, it's just such an amazing and incredible experience, and it helps me get to know everyone. So I get to put faces to the emails, and I'm just, as always, just super grateful to be here.
Love it. I love it. It's so true. It's one thing to connect, through writing, through the inbox and the community forum. But then the magic happens when we're here together in the Zoom room. And we got to see, just as we got on, everybody settling in. Yara's sitting there eagerly with a big smile on her face as always, and just ready to go. And I also want to say thanks to those, the last couple of episodes we've been kind of plugging, for those who listen on Spotify or Apple or Google, to leave us a review, just to kind of get some visibility, some traction on the podcast. We're now celebrating 15 reviews on Spotify, which is amazing. We hit the goal of 10 on Apple. So we've hit that goal. And I must say, there's 0 on Google. And I'm not surprised. I've never listened to a podcast on Google, but I just want to put it out there. I'm curious if anybody listens to podcasts on Google, our podcast, any podcast, let us know. Drop it. I see head shaking, including Kristen's.
Yeah,
If
no.
they'll drop us a comment in the chat, send us an email. We would just be curious to find out. But really, thank you to those who have left a review.
Yeah.
Also, got to do a quick plug. Next week is Black Friday, which is a big thing in the U.S. You know, of course, it's the U.S. Thanksgiving, and it's a long weekend. It's a time of giving, a time of thanks. And so we always have our biggest sale of the year. Our biggest discount of the year happens on that Black Friday, November 24th. So if you're, I mean, everybody who's here with us in Zoom, you're already members of the community. But if you happen to be listening to this and curious to join, that could be a very, very smart time to hop in. So a few little, I mentioned to Kristen before, we get into the main topics, just a few little things I wanted to touch on. Kristen, did you ever watch The Simpsons growing up? I'm curious.
Of course. Yes, of
You did?
course. It was a staple show growing up in a Canadian household. It was like every Sunday. That's like my, family would sit, we'd have dinner, and that was how, you ended the night, 8 o'clock, watch Simpsons, and then the kids went off to bed. So absolutely I did.
You get it. That's it. I mean,
I get
it came out
it.
in the late 80s, a big thing in the 90s.
You're dating us, Jack. You're dating us.
I know. It's our generation. But you know what? It's and you're probably wondering, why am I bringing this up on a yoga podcast? I'll tell you what, twice a week I go to the local Whole Foods and I go grocery shopping. And there's always this one woman, often there's this one woman who's at the checkout. And I call her the Malk lady for fun. And she calls me the Malk man because I buy almond milk, and so they have a brand called Malk, and apparently this was on The Simpsons like 30 years ago or something like that. And so the first time I came to the checkout buying Malk, she got so excited. She's like, I had no idea. She's a huge Simpsons fan, and every time I go there, naturally we talk about Malk, we talk about The Simpsons. And even though like normally I'm not interested in kind of like superficial type conversations like the hockey game or the weather, but she gets so lit up, and I can always see the couple of people in the lineup for the checkout lineup before me, and they're just like, they're not connecting with her. They're checking their phone or just like, whatever, like a lot of us do, and I've been guilty of it. And so I always make such a point, as soon as we see each other, big, huge smile. I ask her, like, what's the latest episode? Yes, last night she's telling me she saw the episode where NSYNC came to Springfield. Like, it's just fun seeing people get lit up about what they're passionate about. And I know, so I was thinking about that as yogis, like, we may, I speak for myself, I may always want to talk about yoga or always want to talk about the things that I'm passionate about, but also a big part of yoga is connection and showing genuine interest in others, maybe being less selfish, Jack, and really finding out what other people's interests are. And so knowing that she is like a maniac Simpsons raving fan, that's what we get to talk about. So I feel like that's a little way to create connection. That's a little way to practice yoga. And I'm so happy that you are also a Simpsons buff. Kristen.
Yes.
Nice.
That's so funny.
The next thing is 11:11. So we gotta welcome in all the divine, beautiful energy here on the East Coast. The next thing I wanted to talk about, have you heard of the acronym FOMO?
Yeah.
You heard of that before?
Yeah.
And different than FUBAR, that's a different acronym.
We are dated.
I'm not gonna spell that one out. Hopefully, most people don't know. But FOMO, fear of missing out. And I woke up this morning, after I did all my rituals and my yoga and stuff, my sadhana. But when I did open up my phone, had WhatsApp messages, there had been a gathering here at Harvard Divinity School last night, and I knew it was happening, of of these different, yogis and just practitioners and, of kirtan and bhakti who got together for a little Diwali with the Festival of Lights, a little bit of a get together, and they were playing harmonium and chanting mantra. And so I woke up and it was like that, oh, I should, quote unquote, oh, I should have been there. And so I was in that dialogue for 30 seconds, but because I'm a yogi, because we practice these things, I realized, you know what, actually, I last night I needed rest. Like it was a full day. You remember, Kristen, we were on a call together. We shortened up that call because I had a lot to do and I needed rest. And and I feel like that was the right thing to do. There's sometimes in life, not always, but sometimes there's more opportunities than there is time. And sometimes saying no to one thing is actually saying yes to ourselves. So that's just a little. Have you had that experience, that FOMO feeling?
Course. And it's funny, as you're speaking, it just made me think something I tell my husband because he does that a lot. So if you're listening, Greg, sorry for outing you. I always say, Greg, don't should on yourself. You always should. But what happens when you get into that mindset is you spiral, right? So you're like, I should do this. I need to do this. My to-do list is that. And we aren't in that present moment. We're always, going. And that's what I like to call shitting on yourself. So, so yes, I know that feeling very well, but I think something that's even more important, like you said, Jack, is really leaning into what you need in that moment. Yeah, I should be cleaning my office. Yes, I should be doing the dishes. Yes, I should be going to, this event with my friends, but what do I need? So
Mhm.
it's a really great opportunity to check in with yourself. You
Yeah.
know what? Put the shoulds aside. What do I need at this moment? So I think it's a really great point. And of course, we all have FOMO, but something we have to do is not get distracted by those shiny things, those FOMOs, and really just kind of lean into what we need in that moment. So I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, no, that's some really great additions as well. I love it, and I wanted to share that because I know you've mentioned you've experienced it, I've experienced it. Anybody else who's listening, just that reminder, right? You really said it well, like to ask ourselves, what do we need in that moment? And truthfully, I just got to say, if you guys hear background noise, it just so happens that it's leaf blowing season, and so they're blowing the leaves right outside the window. What can you do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but I did also, although I wasn't able to go last night to this particular event at the Harvard Divinity School, the night before on Sunday night, I did go to a Diwali event at the Bhakti Yoga Ashram, the temple. And so that's part of why I was tired, because that was like a full day and a lot of kirtan there. But I wanted to bring that up because so they say it's a very auspicious thing to do, like on these days like Diwali, which is the festival of lights, or Holi, which is the color festival. If anybody's been with us in India, it's just amazing. And so there's these different events, and when it is one of those auspicious days, they say it's auspicious or kind of good luck, prosperity to gift something to somebody else. And so the example was made about like gifting a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. And so, while I was there at the event, I happened to be at this Bhakti Yoga ashram, in the environment, all enthusiastic from, dancing and singing kirtan and chanting mantra and, being with great yogis. And I ended up talking to the temple, and we organized to get 2 boxes of Bhagavad Gitas. And then the next morning I brought them to class and distributed to everybody, because we're in a class, the class on Krishna and Christ, which is going to be a new course in January. It's going to be really cool. And since we're studying the Bhagavad Gita there, but nobody has a copy, brought everybody a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. I promise I didn't do it for good karma. I didn't. That's not why I did it, even though that is a side product, they say. But I just thought, like, sometimes just in the moment you have those spontaneous ideas, and I think those can be the best gifts, right? It's like on December 24th when you're trying to figure out, oh, I got to get that person a gift. It's just like not in the flow. But sometimes you just like see something or you feel something and it's like, yes, this is perfect. And it was just one of those moments. So although I missed last night's festival, Sunday night, I got to go to the temple, got to distribute 32 copies of the Bhagavad Gita to students, who now have access to all of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm excited for that. Next on, Kristen may have froze for a second, but that's all good because Muskoka is in the middle of nowhere. The next thing I wanted to ask, I'm going to put it out actually into the group here. Is anybody here a friend of Bill? No. Okay. So the point being, actually, I'm going to wait till Kristen's back. She's just having a little malfunction. I'm going to ask that question after. So the next thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, for those who are listening, you have no idea. There's no issues, but yeah, Kristen just completely disappeared. This sometimes happens with technology, and now I'm left all by myself. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? But actually, I'm not because I see Yada and Felicia and Pam and Brandon and everybody who's tuning in on their videos. So really, the next thing I wanted to ask you guys for your. This is where I can engage those of you who are here with me. Next week for the US Thanksgiving, they are having here at the Harvard Divinity School, they're having essentially a Thanksgiving dinner on the Tuesday before for all of the students, just to be able to bring people together. And as of now, I have RSVP'd yes that I'm going to go, but I feel like this internal resistance, and not that there's anything bad or wrong with it, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just like not my, and it's nothing to do about the purpose of it, the fact that it's US Thanksgiving. It's nothing like that. It's more like this social anxiety thing of like, I mean, do I really want to spend an evening socializing and talking to people about who knows what? I'm sure some of you may say, like, yeah, it's good to step out of our comfort zone and to stretch ourselves and to put ourselves in new environment and probably have some nice, meaningful conversations, right? These are my colleagues, these are my fellow students who I don't make too much of an effort to connect with. Maybe that's why there's a resistance. And then there's the other part of me that knows that I'm always kind of very, very busy doing things, very committed, lots on the go, and truthfully, an evening of rest and getting to bed earlier and not being out so late will also nourish me. So I'm curious. I'm curious to hear. In fact, I'm just for fun. I'm going to bring our friend Pam on since I mentioned you. If I can do that, give me some wisdom, oh Pam, dear friend. What would
I
you?
was
Yeah,
about to type in the chat a question.
yeah.
What do you think originally motivated or had you sign up or commit to doing it in the first place?
That's a great question. And it was really, so the invitation came last week. It came last year and I declined. It came again this year. And I said, you know what, like this is an opportunity to connect with some of my fellow students. And I saw names of people who have RSVP'd, yes, they're going. And a few of the names are like, you know what, I've actually always wanted to connect with those people, but I just don't hang out at school. I just go there, class, leave. So I thought maybe this is a nice opportunity to connect with them, with some of those students. But then I also talk myself out of it because I'm like, I'm also like, well, there's going to be a lot of people there. And what are the chances that I'm really going to be able to have a meaningful conversation with those people that I would want to? And oh, it could be a loud environment, and oh, there's a couple of students who like to talk a lot to me, and maybe I'm going to get stuck sitting at a table with this one individual who's a great guy, a great older man, and just likes to talk a lot. And so it's like I start coming up with this story, almost like this worst case scenario, right? That it's going to be loud, I'm going to get stuck at a table with somebody that I don't really want to connect with at that time. But the reason that I initially signed up is there are a few people that I just haven't had a chance to really get to know.
So if you're giving all that airtime to the what could go wrong, the airtime to what could go right and amazing.
Oh, you must be a Dharma coach. Yeah, no, it's so true. That's so true. And it's okay. I received that. I was thinking about this on my morning japa walk this morning because I was like, you know what? Because I know that, and our friend Hope, who's often with us on Sunday Satsang, and we were talking about flexibility last week, I think on the mentorship program. And sometimes there is an opportunity for us to be flexible, whether that means going out to an event and staying up a little bit later than we normally do, or going to some environment and where we have to interact with more people than we're normally comfortable with. So on the one side, I understand the need for flexibility, and I fully receive. I need to be more flexible in a lot of areas. Hunter will tell you that, like a lot of areas. And then at the same time, there is also the aspect of like, well, sometimes, relaxing and staying at home with a nice tea and taking Epsom salt bath and getting into bed by 7 p.m. Like, I must be getting old, because to me, that's like an exciting night.
Okay, I still haven't heard what's good about, or what could be good about going to the event. You have said what could be like kind of negative, and you've said what's good about staying home.
Yeah.
What might be good? What could happen?
What could happen? Okay, well, let's say the 2 or 3 individuals that I would want that I have really been wanting to have a conversation with, but we're just not. Either we're not in classes together, or we sit at different sides of the room and just haven't connected. Is that I could actually get to know that person and have a meaningful conversation, get to know what their path, because some of them have come from the yoga path, some of them are from India, and so it's like I think there's something there that we could connect on and have a meaningful conversation. So what could go right is that we have a meaningful conversation. See, I could play the game, and I know what you're doing, and it's good and it's right. And I could go on now and probably say 3 or 4 things that could go right. And then I would come back to, it's like, okay, though a lot of good things could go right. And it's okay to live with FOMO and stay at home with my tea and my Epsom salt. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I guess maybe what I'm saying is like, how do we ultimately make that decision, right? It's like should or not should, because we don't want to should on ourselves, as Kristen said, but like, ought I, how do I say it? Should basically, which should I do?
What if there was no right decision? Both could be very wonderful and right. Going and not going are perfectly plausible, right things to do.
Yeah, I agree. Here's a guarantee. Both of them would end up being an excellent evening. Staying home, which would I always do. Excellent evening. Love it. Going out, I make it like it's a real big late thing. It starts at 5:30 and is done at 7:30, but that's pushing it a little bit for me, right? I'm usually getting into bed by 7:30. Am I picking up on a loving encouragement to consider going?
Well, and I think that I have no skin in the game, if you want to say. Whatever you do is beautiful, but I also think that if you do decide to go, keep putting those positive vibes out there that this is what will happen. Stop thinking about the negative, just keep thinking, I will meet with those people that I want to talk to. I will make a point to go directly to them. I think you're pretty good at directing what you want and how things go. You can take that right on into your social event, and you always have an out. You can leave after 5 minutes.
That's true. Oh my goodness, that's so true. And that's a really great reminder about about setting the intention that it's going to be a nice experience. Because actually, I had to do that on Sunday, going to the yoga ashram, to the temple. You know, it's one of those things where I lead 3 calls on Sunday, right? We have our Sunday satsang and then mentorship, and then I led the 200-hour call. So, which I love, right? Like that lights me up. And, you know, after that, it's like, you know, nice to relax and not use my voice a whole bunch. So I caught myself as I was doing a little bit of stretching and meditation here on my mat. And I noticed that like there was a little bit of resistance to going that evening to the Diwali event at the temple. And I did I'm really pleased. I did exactly what you said, Pam. I said like, well, you know what? This is like a really cool opportunity. Like this can be a really fun evening. Like, so I intentionally let go of all of the, oh, it'd be so much easier to just stay home and da da da. And then really got excited about it. Like I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna take a shower. I'm gonna freshen up, and I'm just gonna go in. And it ended up being an amazing evening that I got to connect with a few really, really beautiful souls that actually came from my school. Did stay up a lot later than I normally would, but then was inspired to get, you know, all the copies of the Bhagavad Gita and bring them to the classmates the next day. So, and although the next day I was, you know, according to my aura ring and what I could feel, I was, you know, a little bit lower on energy and I didn't get as much sleep as normal. At the same time, like it was very inspired, like spiritually uplifting. So point being, I did exactly what you said, Pam. I started focusing on all the good.
And I think you know that when you get that little bit of depletion, you know how to get it back up pretty quickly.
I do. And like the last point you said, I also know how to politely excuse myself whenever I need to. No, like really, I do it. Like I have no shame, and you know, it's like, hey, God, like even at the temple, by the time 9 o'clock came, and I was like, which is late for me, and I was like right in the middle of amazing, like inspiring conversation. I just looked everybody in the eye. I said, it's an hour past my bedtime, and I gotta excuse myself, but it's been so amazing being here with all of you. Have fun at the kirtan, which is going to continue for another hour or more, and namaste. So that's a good point. We can always excuse ourselves. I love it. This wasn't planned, but this was like a perfect, you know, we obviously, our dear friend Kristen is back. Muskoka Wi-Fi is always as it is. But it was meant to be, Pam. You know, if for those who don't know, put your how can people find you, Pam, on Instagram?
Yeah, sure. I am Pam Tibbs, and my company is called The Resilient Restaurateur. And I do coaching, not just for restaurant people, but for everyone. And my dharma, my purpose in life is to help other people find theirs, whether that's through yoga or coaching, through changes in life, habits, whatever it is that you are feeling you need help and direction in. I'm here for you. And I love this community that I'm just privileged and honored to be a part of.
It's an honor to have you here with us. It's been like 3 years strong since 2020. And yeah, I mean, and we got to add to your resume or your bio as well, helping people overcome their social anxiety to going to public events. Yes. Yeah. Even Yara is celebrating. Thank you. Awesome. Well, let's send the love, high vibes. Kansas City, Missouri representing. Nice little tangent. So, see, that was like for those who are listening, and you know, that was like a little mini experience of what we have like at a normal Zoom call, right? We get to engage with our students. I promise, though, it's not always like therapy for me. It's not always about fixing Jack or coaching Jack, but sometimes I need some reminders as well. So we're back on Kristen. The question I was going to ask, and I put it out. I could tell that the others on the line didn't really respond, and I'm curious if you would. Are you a friend of Bill?
Am I a friend of Bill?
Yeah.
Bill.
Right, exactly. So that you responded the exact same way that I do, and I just wanted to do a shout out because I at class last week, a really nice woman came up to me. This was like before class, and she's like, "Are you a friend of Bill?" And I did the same thing. I'm like, I don't even really know who you are. Never mind Bill. And but I guess it's a code word for people who are in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so it's kind of like a code way of saying like, hey, are you also in recovery? I didn't know that because I used yoga to get sober. I didn't use AA. But when I asked on the Sunday satsang, similar response from everybody except our friend Kiernan. She who has a big part of that community. She's like, oh yeah, I'm a friend of Bill, and she was really able to explain.
Yeah.
The idea of it is having that in Alcoholics Anonymous, so that anonymous space, because often in the beginning when we're making this vulnerable, lifestyle change, whether it's with alcohol, whatever it happens to be, we all have our things, and being able to have that safe space and to bringing it back into yoga, like that's the opportunity that we have as yoga teachers, right? Is to create that safe space, and obviously everything we talk about, I mean, on the podcast is not confidential; it's pretty public. But within our other Zoom calls and sharing circles and the 200-hour hero's journey, it's confidential. It's a safe space, and maybe ours will be. Are you a friend of Joe? As in like Finding Joe?
Finding Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. As
So
somebody that is not a drinker or into substances, I that one went right over my head.
same. It's all good. And if anything, we get to educate ourselves a little bit. Saw the thumbs up there from Pam. A couple more things that I wanted to touch on before we get into the bulk. And so the other thing was, so as you know, I happen to be vegan. I'm not here to preach to anybody, just something that has worked for me for a lot of years. And as vegans, we tend to we can get low on vitamin B. B is in baseball. And so not that I'm low, but I just preventative. I went to this IV therapy lounge, which is where you go and they give you a vitamin B shot. And while I was doing it, which is what I love to do, I was just asking questions, and the therapist who's there, who's a nurse in the ER, who also happens to work here on weekends at that place, and just asking her all kinds of questions about the different treatments they have. They have cold therapy and sauna and all this oxygen stuff, and they also have Botox, which I was really curious about to learn about. I didn't get any Botox, I promise. But I guess I just wanted to understand that, because it's again bringing it back into this idea of yoga. We have this material body which is aging. For Kristen, you and I, and who we used to watch The Simpsons in the 1980s. We're not kids anymore getting put to bed after the Simpsons episode.
Oh, my gray hairs are already showing,
I know. I'm noticing mine even on, you can't see here, but like on top, like the
I'm a
side.
little like, I'm like, oh man, the Zoom really picks those gray hairs up, don't they? Gotta get on.
Yeah. So anyway, just having that conversation, it just made me think that, many of us, we do whatever we can to stay younger, like to stay healthier. I fully get behind that. But it's funny, we do these things to stay younger, whether it's, makeup, and again, no dig against makeup. It's a beautiful thing to look pretty. But then there's like different levels of it, right? It's like, okay, there's the makeup and the clothing, and then there's there's Botox that I was learning about, and then of course I guess there's like plastic surgery, which is a whole nother level. And it's almost like we have this attachment, which is really what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us again, this attachment to like wanting to stay young and youthful for as long as we can. And there's filters on Instagram, and there's all these things that we can do, and it's okay to have fun. But you had put up a post actually recently, Kristen. I remember that. And it was basically saying like no filter. You did one with filter and one without filter, and but then really embracing of like, what, this is me without a filter.
Yeah. And it was basically just like, be careful who claims to be something and reality behind the mask is something else, was kind of the basis of the post. So I did the filter, and then really just had fun with the this is me, this is who I am, this is what you get when you talk to me, when you speak to me, when you work with me. So Yeah, I can relate to that quite a bit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that's really, our friend Amy, not on with us today, but like she had said she just made a compliment to like us and the community that she really appreciates the vulnerability. And she used the word candor, which I had to Google because but I guess it means like openness, like just the openness and the vulnerability that we have. And that really like just shows, as that's our opportunity as yogis and yoga teachers to hold that space and inspire others to be real. So it's a pleasure to be able to do that with all of you. So before we jump into our yoga myth, I promise we're going to get there. The last of kind of the intro points. Things are getting real. Kristen, those of you who are listening on the podcast have heard in previous episodes, my intention to give up this home here, this apartment that you can see if you're on video, and to move into the yoga ashram for next semester. And so that would be in January. And right before this call started, I got an email from Harvard University Housing. This is like a student housing. This is that I'm in an apartment. And I got an email saying your apartment has been rented as of December basically saying your last day is December the 8th, which is the date I chose. And so like it's real now. Like December the 8th, less than 1 month, all of this stuff goes out back to Canada, a few things to the yoga ashram, and just going all in. And again, just pulling that back into that reminder of like when we have a heart desire, when we have like an inclination of something we want to do or something we want to experience, and like we set that intention. And if we were to go back and listen to past episodes or past sharing circle calls, just a month or two ago, I was like talking about it, like maybe I'm considering it, thinking about it, and now it's like it's real, it's happening. Moving in, and I honestly couldn't be more excited, for this experience, because just like Pam said with regards to that event, it's not as easy to just like leave after 5 minutes, but it's not permanent. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's an experience. After a semester, if for some reason it's not supportive or empowering of the environment that I need to run Happy Jack Yoga and to be a student, I can change it, but I feel that it will be. And so heads up, it's real.
Yep. That's exciting.
Yes.
Change can be very scary, but also when you lean into it, can be really exciting.
Yeah, I feel that. So why don't we, with the time we have, Kristen, let's jump into the myth. What do we got for a myth this week?
The myth is letting go is the hardest asana. Ooh.
Letting go is the hardest asana. That's good. There's some really good truth in that. When I think about letting go, I know, again, I tend to be someone who wants to control things or to make things go a certain way. Pam had said, she's like, I think if I know you, Jack, you'll figure out a way to create the environment at that Thanksgiving dinner event so that you will be able to connect with the people you want to. Because it's true. Like I do have this ability and this need to make things go a certain way, and that to some extent creates results. I'm moving into the yoga ashram, whatever else I've done, but also when we have that attachment, whether it's an attachment to our age or our appearance or whatever it happens to be, that's when suffering can come up, right? Like, and so just thinking about that, that idea of letting go, I know that's something I need to work on. I get to work on. So I guess, so on the one side, the idea around this myth makes sense, but I wanted to clarify that letting go is not actually an asana. So asana, right? Asana it's a Sanskrit word, and it means posture. It actually, another translation of it is seat. Like the original asana, the original posture was a seated position, right? Like a yogi, there's going back thousands of years, there's carvings in the Indus Valley, like in the rocks, and there would be like a yogi sitting there cross-legged with their hands in a mudra and eyes closed. And that was like really the original asana.
Yeah.
So just to kind of put that in context, and then of course, the many more asanas were created by the great yogis over the years. But I just wanted to make that distinction that, because I think that we can kind of, make things, whatever we do here in the West, sometimes appropriating and sometimes just making it relevant. But letting go itself is not an asana, but letting go is definitely something I need to work on. What do you think? What do you think when you hear that myth?
So I think Yara said it. It's not really a myth for me either, because letting go is hard, and I think it's a great play on words. I mean, we know, especially if we study yoga, that asana isn't really about letting go. It's like you just said, Jack. But I think it's a great and beautiful play on words, and really, to me, it means we're preparing to get into the pose. And sometimes that means we got to let go of all the crap that's going on around us to really get into the pose, to get into yourself. You really just have to let go of what's no longer serving. Just let go of the things that are weighing you down. And that's when you come into that comfortable seat, that asana, that, preparing for that meditation, that inward journey. So really, it just means leave what doesn't serve you at the door, and you're coming over that threshold into that comfortable seat of that asana, that seated position, that stillness.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that kind of means for me.
That's good. That was really well said. Like that, like really tying in that art and that practice of letting go with coming into the asana. Like that's everything you just said. I 100% agree with, and there's like right on. And that's cool how each of us can come up with our different interpretation, and that's why as yoga teachers, right? And that came from your experience of getting into yoga poses and noticing that need to let go in order to fully come into the pose. And you might have, you could read that in a book or hear it on a podcast, and you'll get it at the intellectual level, but it's not until we get on our mat and do that practice that we can really speak to it and share it with our students in a way that like we're just so connected to the teaching versus just saying the words.
And another way to look at it too is, when we get into our heads about what we should look like, what we should, what our body should look like, what we should look like as yogis. Should I be, wearing the tight clothes and be super thin and just executing the pose perfectly? We got to let go of that, because that's not yoga. That's not asana. That has no room here in this practice. So really, it just kind of means for me too, on a different perspective, is letting go of the way I'm supposed to look, the way I'm supposed to, feel. And really, when we let go of all that noise, that's when we're in the pose. That's when we're really doing yoga. When you let go of the fact that, the person beside me is in a headstand, but I'm in, downward dog or child's pose. Beautiful, both yoga, both perfect. So getting out of your head, you don't have to look like that. You don't have to look like that. And Jack, even at our live retreat, you're leading us through this beautiful hero's journey. And when I looked up, just took a moment to really breathe in that moment, everybody was just in such a beautiful position, in their own unique position. And that to me just spoke volumes about you as a teacher, and just the fact that everybody was really stepping into their yoga, their asana. So I think that could be a different perspective on that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful memory of the retreat, and that's what we would have done in that class, is to, as we often say as yoga teachers, like take a pose, a variation that works for you. Like really be true to yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. And truthfully, for some of you out there, like we got some yogis on the call who are in their 20s and in their prime, and their bodies are strong, and that's great. And so for sometimes actually an advanced variation of the pose is needed. A friend of mine, he was practicing, he was telling me this story. He was practicing in a yoga class, and he started, as part of the flow. He was at the back of the room, not trying to get any attention, but he just started taking some handstands. He happens to be able to do handstand very well, and so he was doing handstands, and the teacher came up to him and said, "Less is more." And basically saying like, okay, stop your showboating, come back to do what everybody else is doing. And he basically, I think he probably said after class, he's like, hey, I wasn't doing that to impress. Like, I know my body. He's a young, strong, healthy, athletic guy, and handstand is part of his practice. And he knew that would serve him in that moment. And so whether we take a handstand or whether we take a full wheel when the teacher is giving us another variation, like if that's going to nourish us, right? If we're doing it for our ego, well, that's not yoga. But if we're doing it because our body's craving for it, and so that's just kind of the other side, because more often than not, many of us could take the modification and just honor our body and not try to push ourselves to what others may be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was great. It's something I just want to acknowledge because it fits in with this. Pam had asked in the chat. She said, with regards to me moving into the temple, she said, "How will you lead classes and record this podcast?" Great question. And thankfully, you're talking to somebody who likes to control and micromanage and make sure everything. So you better believe I've got that all handled. I got that figured out. In fact, just last week or this weekend, there's a section called the Harvard Innovation Lab, and I'm a part of that community. I have a mentor that part of that community, and so I went in there, and they have like 20 or 30 conference rooms that are available for rent. For basically hosting Zoom calls, anywhere from like 2-person rooms to like really big rooms, and you just go online and you reserve them. So like certainly Sunday mornings when we lead many of our calls, there's going to be a lot of availability, but I can just go in, sign it out. So yeah, Sunday mornings for satsang, for the mentorship program, for the 200-hour, Tuesday podcast, definitely going to be reserving for that. Wednesday night, 200-hour, Thursday, business of yoga. All of those, we're going to have a reservation. If anybody is in the area, come and join me at the Harvard Innovation Lab. But no, it's a good question. We got it all figured out. Nice. So I can't keep up with all the comments in there, but I love all the communication in the chat. So what we're going to do here, we just got like 10 minutes left. And I knew this would happen because I knew that there was just like many fun topics to get into. We took a little bit of a hiatus from the plan that Hanna has, where we do different modules from the 200-hour, but just wanted to talk with a few fun topics. So we thought for the main topic, I was actually going to put it on Kristen and say that the old AMA, ask me anything. And I said, don't tell me in advance. So I have no idea what you're going to ask me, but Kristen has prepared some questions, and we'll see how many we have time for. And if anybody else has questions, put them in the chat or send us an email at info@happyjackyoga.com because we're happy to take them. But all right, I'm on the hot seat. What do we got?
Okay, this is a deep one. So the first question I have is, you're very transparent about the fact that your parents nicknamed you Happy Jack as, probably as a baby. Yeah. And you've also been very transparent that as a child, sometimes you hid behind that mask because you didn't always feel like Happy Jack. Sometimes you were really sad, and you have been really transparent with that in the past, especially with our community. So now as an adult, do you still connect deeply with that title and that identity? Mm-hmm. And how has that shaped who you are today?
Oh, that's a good question. That's such a good question. Because it's something that I think about.
Yeah.
So in a way, I do connect to the name. I do connect to the name I often, when I kick off calls, namaste, happy Jack here. Like if you do any of our courses, the video, like it feels very natural. It feels fun. It's, it's playful. Like I don't always talk exactly like that. So it's a bit of a role I step into sometimes. But it does feel authentic. But what's interesting is that there sometimes is a bit of an insecurity around introducing myself. Like certainly when I'm at Harvard, I don't like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Happy Jack, or even at different conferences, in whether it's in academia or personal development, or, I've had people like senior kind of, how do I say, bosses, of programs that I've been in that have kind of questioned and judged the name, and they kind of like, because they often don't always know the whole backstory, right? Like the story is my parents gave me the name when I was a baby because I was super happy and always smiling, and so my parents gave me the name Happy Jack. But sometimes without explaining all of that, some people are like, did this guy just name himself Happy Jack? Like that's kind of weird. Or like, who is he to just call himself Happy Jack? So there has in recent years been like a bit of an insecurity, and often I will just say, hey, I'm Jack, at school. So I guess that's kind of like the dance that I'm in right now. So I guess to answer clearly, like, yes, I connect with Happy Jack, and maybe depending on the environment and the context will depend on how I introduce myself.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think sometimes instead of calling it like an identity, it can just be a hat we wear, right? I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, the director of community. We step into all these roles and we wear these different hats. And sometimes we kind of get caught up in some of those hats, if you will. But that
Yeah.
beautifully explained.
Yeah. And just to add on that, because I've shared, but I'll share because I haven't on the podcast, but like there were moments earlier as a yoga teacher where I was Happy Jack, and I was, Happy Jack yoga, traveling around the world. And there were some moments that I felt a pressure that I always had to be happy. And that
Yeah.
wasn't always the case, right? So though in those moments of, needing to be a certain way. So I feel like now, I mean, maybe more accurate now would be the like vulnerable Jack, or open Jack, or authentic Jack. But I don't think that has as catchy a
That
ring,
does have
right?
a great ring. I would need a new t-shirt too.
Yeah. So I don't think that's gonna fly. So now it's more than, and Hun and I, we talk about this even just this past week, and we will continue talking about it. We the community, it's not about me as an individual. It's not about Hanna, right? It's not about you or Cece, who has joined us now as well, right? It's about each person finding that's why we do the hero's journey, right? That's why we explore, and that's a big part of it, is really finding our truth and being our authentic self and our full self-expression. Yeah, so, and in a way, I think I'm evolving, and and who knows, I mean, I've changed the color of my shirt. Maybe I'm gonna change my haircut and buzz it off one day, moving into the temple. um Maybe I'm gonna change my name, I don't know. But I don't think, even that's the cool thing, even if I did change my name, or I get some spiritual name one day, Happy Jack Yoga is not me, and it's not Hanna, and it's not you. It's literally, it's a community. It's a way of being. So that's excellent question. And
Thank you.
Cece says yes, because Cece has a tattoo of Happy Jack Yoga, so she's probably thinking, don't change the name. Yeah. Love it.
I have
Um,
sorry, go ahead, Jack.
yeah, no, I was gonna say we got time for I
Okay.
think we could squeeze in one more.
I have one more. It's not as deep, I promise. But as you know, even with the umbrella of spirituality, a lot of people get caught up in the vastness of it. And I feel the same way with yoga, right? Because it is a yogic journey, it's a way of life, it's a spiritual path. So for those of us who can sometimes feel very overwhelmed by how to incorporate yoga and a more yogic way of life into our day-to-day lives, what would you recommend? What would be the starting point that you would recommend for us that are like, oh, I need to do this and this and this, and get caught up in the shoulds and get caught up in the vastness that is yoga?
Yeah, I feel like that when the first thing that comes to my heart is just enjoying the journey and going at the pace that feels right. Because if I walked into my first yoga class and it was doing what we did at the yoga ashram this weekend, where everybody's dancing around and chanting mantras, and some of people were dressed up in Indian gear and had this tilak paint on their face. I probably would have been like, whoa, this is not for me. Like this is not what I signed up for. And so like first found the yoga for the physical practice, and then noticed the meditation, and then we found the spirituality. It's like, whoa, connecting to something bigger than myself. I'm not the center of the universe. And so I think that we really don't want to compare to one another, right? And it took me a long time to be able to be ready to read the Bhagavad Gita. Some of you, again, our friend Pam, who was just on the show, like she her and some others like really connected to this and just like jumped right in. I'm a bit of a slow, for me it was slower. And so I think we don't want to compare to others, but I think creating the practice, creating the lifestyle that is most authentic for us, and just trusting the process. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because it can be overwhelming, right? And like we were talking about with the quote, sitting beside somebody and comparing, oh, they're doing this, they're advanced, and I'm just coming in as a newbie. And so I think sometimes it can be very overwhelming. Like, where do I start? And everybody's path looks so different. So I think it's kind of a funny question, because really it's kind of start where you are.
Mm.
It's start in the place that you are, and everybody's going to start in a different place, and it's going to look differently. So whether that is just doing a 5-minute practice every day, or a 10-minute practice, or picking up a yogic book like the Bhagavad Gita is a bit of a hefty read, but a beautiful one nonetheless. So if that's where you are, pick it up and work your way through it. Or better yet, take the Bhagavad Gita course and have Happy Jack walk you through it. So um, you
Yeah, well,
know,
and that's what I was going to say. It's like I love what you said. Start where you are, and if you're looking for something different, start with the hero's journey. I'll put a plug in there just because we're wrapping up here in a minute. Again, next week for Black Friday, for US Thanksgiving, biggest sale of the year, biggest discount of the year. The hero's journey is becoming a certified yoga teacher, but as everybody on this call knows, it's way more than that. It's like doing all of this inner work, identifying who we are, connecting to our best selves, becoming the best version of ourselves, and then being able to share that confidently and courageously with others. So if anybody's thinking about yoga teacher training or doing this deep inquiry, send us an email, info@happyjackyoga.com. We'll keep you posted. But Kristen, thank you so much for stepping in here again when Hanna's wrapping up in Europe. We're sending so much love to everybody who is here in Zoom. Thank you for being here live with us. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, if you haven't already, please leave us a review on whatever platform that you happen to use, just to help the algorithm so yogis will find the podcast. Next week, Hanna's back in town. In fact, she's back in Canada next week. So until then, my friends, make it an amazing rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Namaste.